They poured concrete into my well. My well, the one I built myself. Engineered. Permitted. Cleaner than city water. I'm a civil engineer, not some backyard wizard, but to Victoria Saur. 35. HOA president, clipboard in hand and Botox grin in place, I was a contamination risk. That morning I stepped outside and froze. Caution tape, plastic wrap, 2 cement trucks roaring like they were sealing off a biohazard zone. A giant HOA sign, danger, contaminated water source. No warning, no hearing, no proof, just pure petty power. Think that's extreme stick around, because by the time I hit back, the same HOA that buried my well started burying its own secrets. 6 months before the cement hit the well, I moved to Riverside Heights thinking I'd finally escaped the noise. Sold my tech, startup bought a gorgeous $800,000 house in cash, no mortgage, no nonsense. Just peace. 50 homes, manicured lawns, identical mailboxes, and an HOA that promised harmony. It felt safe. Too safe. Like a gated utopia with hidden claws. I was 25. A civil engineer. Built systems for luxury resorts. I'd had enough of corporate BS and decided to live quietly, work freelance, and maybe enjoy silence that didn't come with a calendar invite. And then I had this idea, build my own well. A clean, self-sustaining, perfectly engineered marvel. Neighbors waved. Kids biked by. Everything looked picture perfect. Until she appeared on my doorstep holding cookies and a smile so tight it looked like it hurt. I should have known that smile was a warning label. The well wasn't just a hole in the ground. It was my rebellion, my declaration of freedom from overpriced utility bills and HOA micromanagement. I designed it with surgical precision UV filtration automated sensors, granite casing that shimmered in sunlight, and LED lighting that turned it into a glowing pool of blue at night. It looked like it belonged in a high-end resort, not a beige suburb. Every detail measured, tested, perfected. I wasn't just building for function, I was building legacy. For the first time, I owned something that was entirely mine. Not leased, not regulated, not compromised. Neighbors came by and said, "That's beautiful," and it was. Not just beautiful, smart, independent, cleaner than anything from the city. I thought they admired it. I thought I was inspiring them. But one of them wasn't impressed. She was offended. 3 days after I finished the well, Victoria Hale knocked on my door. She held a glossy welcome basket filled with overpriced cookies and wore an outfit that screamed suburban royalty, pastel cardigan, perfect makeup, not a single strand of hair out of place. Her voice was sweet, her tone polite, her eyes scanning my yard like a building inspector with a grudge. She circled the well slowly, her heels crunching on gravel, pausing just long enough to let silence turn heavy. Then she smiled again. That smile. Not warmth calculation. She called it impressive. But her eyebrows twitched with envy. Her gaze lingered too long on the granite rim, too long on the LED lights, and way too long on the word independence when I mentioned it. She didn't see water, she saw rebellion. And Victoria Hale did not tolerate rebellion, not on her street. She stood over the well like it was a crime scene, arms folded, head tilted, pretending to admire it. But admiration doesn't come with clenched jaws and darting eyes. She asked about the design, the technology, the water quality, not with curiosity, but with the sharp tone of someone cataloging reasons to hate it. I showed her the real-time water data on my phone. She nodded, tight-lipped. Then she said something about community harmony, how things here should blend in, not stand out. That word, harmony, felt like a leash. She looked at me like I was a dog that had jumped the fence, and the longer she stood there, the colder the air felt, like the HOA itself was breathing down my neck, through her. That night, I replayed our conversation in my head. Something told me the well wasn't what bothered her. It was me. The first HOA meeting I attended felt more like a sentencing than a gathering. The community center was beige sterile. the kind of place where dreams go to die under fluorescent lights. I showed up expecting budget talks and trash schedules. Instead, Victoria stood front and center with a binder thick enough to kill a raccoon. She welcomed everyone with that rehearsed warmth, then slid in the real agenda. 15 new community guidelines just passed, no vote, no warning. She read each one like she was reading my obituary. No external lighting visible from the street. No unsanctioned water systems. No structures altering the aesthetic balance of the neighborhood. Line after line, my well wasn't just included, it was clearly the target. I looked around the room hoping for anyone to say something, but all I saw were lowered eyes and locked jaws. They knew, and they said nothing. When I stood up to speak, my hands weren't shaking yet. I was still holding on to the illusion that logic would matter. I calmly explained that my well had full permits, that these new rules were being applied retroactively, that this wasn't policy, it was persecution. No one interrupted me. No one nodded. No one looked me in the eye. An older man stared at his shoes like they held secrets. A young couple suddenly found their phones fascinating. A woman across the room blinked rapidly like she wanted to speak and swallowed it. I wasn't just outnumbered, I was ostracized. Victoria didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She ended my statement with one slow sentence about community safety and mutual standards. Everyone nodded this time. And just like that, the war started with one line of HOA speak and 20 silent executions. After the meeting, Victoria approached me in the hallway with a smile that felt like a dare. She touched my arm lightly, said she hoped we could find common ground. Her tone was syrup. Her eyes were venom. I remember thinking she's not angry. She's thrilled. This wasn't conflict to her, it was sport. As she walked away, she turned once more toward the well, her gaze lingering. Not on the structure, on me. That look, it was the same look you give a spider you plan to crush but want to watch squirm first. Back at home, I stood by the well and stared into the water, the LED lights casting shadows that now felt like warnings. I should have installed cameras that night. I should have documented everything earlier, but I didn't because I still believed people like her wouldn't go that far. I had no idea how far she'd go. Victoria didn't want me to be part of the community. She wanted me to submit to it or be surgically removed like a threat. The next day, a notice appeared in my mailbox. It wasn't even signed. Just typed rules and a passive-aggressive smile in font. Unauthorized lighting. Decorative obstruction. Visual disruption. Disruption, that word echoed. Not violation. Not hazard. Just too different. My well wasn't breaking anything. It was breaking uniformity. That's what she couldn't stand, the idea that someone could live better, cleaner, smarter without her approval. Every HOA form, every comment from Victoria was dipped in sugar and stapled with poison. She didn't say conform, she said harmonize. But harmony to Victoria Hale meant silent symmetry and total control. And if you stepped 1 inch outside that box, you became a target. The first strike had landed, and more were coming. The first citation came taped to my door like a passive-aggressive love letter. Unauthorized exterior illumination. $75 per day until removed. It was for the LED lighting on my well, the one everyone said looked beautiful. Now it was a hazard. The next day, another notice. Improper drying material on private exterior structure. Translation, I hung a towel on a patio chair. Another $75. Third day, vegetable intrusion. My tomato plant was allegedly 6 inches too close to the property line. That one cost me $100. It wasn't random. It was calculated. Victoria had declared war not with noise, but with paper cuts that bled money and dignity. Meanwhile, my neighbors had inflatable Santas rotting in their yards from last Christmas. No citations there. The message was clear, rules didn't matter, only who Victoria wanted to punish did. I wasn't in a neighborhood. I was in her kingdom. Across the street, old man Gilbert had Christmas lights sagging off his gutters. in July. No fine. Next door, a garden spilling over the sidewalk like botanical anarchy. No violation. 3 houses down, someone painted their shed neon green. HOA, blind as a bat. But my tomatoes. 60 inches instead of $6,600. It didn't take a genius to see it. This wasn't enforcement. It was extermination. Victoria walked past my house, daily clipboard in hand, pretending to jog. She measured things, took photos, smiled at passers-by like she was out bird-watching, but I was the only creature in her scope. She didn't care about harmony. She cared about dominance. My yard wasn't out of line. I was. So I started documenting everything. Photos, dates, times, because if she was going to play HOA dictator, I was about to become her historian with teeth. If Victoria was going to hunt me, I'd give her something to choke on. I started logging everything, timestamps, measurements, photos from the same angles she used. One day, I caught her crouched behind my mailbox pretending to tie her shoe while pointing her phone at my hose connection. Another morning, she traced my flower bed with a measuring tape while humming. She wasn't enforcing rules. She was building a case, a crooked one, and dressing it in HOA jargon. But her flaw, ego. She targeted me like I wouldn't fight back, like I didn't understand systems better than she did. The paper trail she left behind was messy, inconsistent, and full of bias. Her targeting wasn't subtle, and the deeper I dug, the more obvious it became. This wasn't just HOA overreach. This was a coordinated smear campaign, and I was done playing defense. Late one evening, just as I was locking my front door, Mrs. Peterson, my elderly next-door neighbor, shuffled over with a paper in her hand. She glanced around like someone watching for snipers, then whispered, careful, "Dear, she's planning something about your well." I heard her on the phone, something about contamination and emergency shutdown. I unfolded the note. It was shaky but clear. She's calling it a hazard. Says she'll find a way to report it. I stared at the words like they were written in gasoline. This wasn't paranoia. This was premeditation. Victoria wasn't reacting to my well. She was hunting it. She'd decided it had to go, and now she was building the narrative to justify its execution. Suddenly, every violation, every photo, every fake smile made sense. She didn't want to regulate me. She wanted to erase me. That night, I didn't sleep. I opened my laptop and dove straight into county water laws, HOA codes, city service contracts, all the bureaucratic hell Victoria loved to weaponize. 3 hours in, I found a clause buried inside Riverside Heights' municipal water agreement. If a property or resident is flagged for verified contamination or environmental risk, the city can intervene. Immediately, without prior notice. Not just shut down the well, but authorize destruction. That was it. The sword she was sharpening. She didn't need evidence, just a report that sounded official enough. She wasn't going to sue me or argue with me. She was going to fabricate a crisis, call it safety, and pour concrete into my independence while smiling for the cameras. She wasn't just dangerous, she was strategic. And if I didn't act fast, the next knock on my door wouldn't be from Victoria, it'd be from a demolition crew. I woke up to the sound of diesel engines and metal clanking. Not construction down the street, not utility work. It was in my driveway. 2 cement trucks, 3 workers in hard hats. A county vehicle parked across the street like a government stamp of doom. My well was wrapped in yellow plastic. A red sign flapped in the wind. Danger. Do not approach. Environmental risk. I ran outside barefoot screaming, "What the hell is going on?" The foreman handed me a clipboard with fake concern in his eyes. "Emergency environmental remediation, sir. Your well's been flagged as a contamination threat. We're sealing it permanently." Behind him, a worker dragged a concrete hose toward the granite rim like it was a grave. No court order, no testing, no notice. Just judgment and execution. I looked around for cameras, because this felt like a public shaming. Only this time they were burying the evidence. I told them the well was certified. I had permits test results, real-time water data that showed it was cleaner than anything the city supplied. The crew chief shrugged and pointed to the clipboard. "We've got county authorization, sir. Complaint filed. Risk verified. We're just following protocol." I asked who filed it. No answer. I asked when they tested it. Blank stares. The paperwork looked official, but something was off. Fonts mismatched. No signatures. A chemical report full of vague buzzwords. It wasn't a real emergency. It was a setup, and the system was moving like a machine designed to crush anything outside the mold. I pulled out my phone and hit record. Voice, video, every word, every pump, because once they started pouring concrete down that well, it wasn't just property damage, it was legal ammunition. I wasn't going to stop them, but I sure as hell was going to bury them with it. The hose roared to life and concrete began gushing like liquid stone straight into the heart of everything I built. 25 feet of engineered depth drowned in gray sludge. I stood there helpless, filming every second with my phone while workers moved like surgeons with no soul. My granite rim disappeared first. Then the filter systems. Then the light. It felt like watching someone suffocate a dream in real time. I shouted, "This is illegal! This is fabricated! This is theft!" The county rep nodded like a robot reading off a script. "Public safety, sir. Emergency action. You can request a hearing later." Later. After they filled it. After it was gone. The last of the concrete hissed as it settled and hardened, sealing shut the well like a tomb. And then she arrived, walking slowly across my lawn like a queen visiting the ruins she personally ordered destroyed. Victoria strutted onto my lawn like it was a red carpet event, not a crime scene. She wore white. Of course she did. Flowing dress, expensive sunglasses, a bottle of imported water in one hand like a prop. She gave me a look of mock sympathy and said, "I'm so sorry, Mason. I know how much that little project meant to you." Little project. She called the well a little project as if she hadn't orchestrated its public execution. She said it was necessary for the greater good and that now I could enjoy clean, safe city water like everyone else. I told her this was harassment. She gave me that smirk, the one she used in meetings before she dropped another fine. "That's a very serious accusation, Mason," she said slowly. And the way she said paranoid at the end made it sound like she was diagnosing a mental illness, not justifying sabotage. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "What you just did will be the biggest mistake of your life." She laughed the way villains do in cartoons when they think the hero's out of options. She called me dramatic and said maybe I should take a few days off to cool down and adjust to community living like a normal person. Normal. She meant obedient. She turned and walked away like a general leaving a battlefield certain of her victory. I stood there, fists clenched, phone still recording the concrete still steaming behind me. My well was gone. But the real damage wasn't physical. It was the smugness in her voice, the certainty in her step, the belief that she could get away with it all. She didn't know what I knew. She didn't know I was already building the trap that would bring her entire empire down. That night I reviewed every clip, every document, every fake form she used to justify burying my well. I didn't need to scream. I needed evidence. So I sent her a message pretending to surrender, said I wanted to make peace, said I was ready to be a good neighbor, said maybe she was right all along. She replied in minutes. Of course, Mason exclamation point. Reasonable people can always work things out. We set a time. My backyard. Casual chat. But I spent that evening wiring every corner with cameras and hidden mics. Inside a flower pot. Under the patio table. One inside the outdoor speaker. I even practiced nodding like a beaten dog. Because I didn't want her guard up. I wanted her proud. I wanted her to brag. And once she did, her kingdom was going to crack from the inside out. Victoria arrived exactly on time, wearing a sundress and carrying a bottle of overpriced wine like we were old friends who just needed to clear the air. She air-kissed the space beside my face and took a seat in one of the patio chairs like she owned the place. "This is lovely, Mason. I'm so glad you reached out." She poured herself a glass and crossed her legs like a queen on vacation. I played my role perfectly. Quiet, nodding, humble. I said you really outmaneuvered me with the environmental stuff. She smiled and sipped. Sometimes you have to be creative when people refuse to follow the rules. She leaned back, eyes gleaming like someone about to deliver a TED Talk on manipulation. She had no idea that every word dripping from her mouth was being recorded, and she was about to tell the world exactly how she buried me. I asked how she even thought to use environmental concerns. She beamed like a student finally being recognized for cheating smart. Oh, Mason, you'd be amazed what officials respond to. Say contamination and they move faster than Amazon Prime. I raised my brows, pretending to be impressed. She continued. All it took was $500 to someone who knows how to write official-sounding reports, worth every penny for the results. She laughed and motioned toward the well now buried under hardened concrete. Private wells create complications, she said, as if quoting a rulebook no one had seen. And then came the kicker. Everyone thinks I saved the neighborhood from a dangerous rebel. They have no idea how easy it was to create a crisis. I kept nodding calmly. Inside, I was already formatting the video files in my mind, because that $500 lie was about to cost her everything. She poured another glass of wine, swirling it like a villain in a soap opera. I asked, was this really all about the well or about me standing out? She didn't even blink. Of course it was about you. If I let one person build their own water system, everyone else would want one. Then who pays for the city supply? She said it like she was protecting society. But it was never about fairness. It was about control. She saw independence as infection, and me as patient zero. She toasted to community standards and laughed again. Then she left still glowing, thinking she'd just delivered the victory speech after a flawless takedown. I waited until she turned the corner, then gathered every recording, every file, every document. I didn't need to fight her anymore. The system she used to crush me was now going to crush her, and I had the proof. The next morning, I called the Colorado Springs Water Department and asked to speak to someone about a violation of municipal code. I submitted the video recordings, her verbal confession, the fake contamination report, and a timeline of every retaliatory action she had taken. The supervisor's voice changed halfway through our call. He asked for everything in writing and said he was escalating the case immediately. 48 hours later, Riverside Heights received an emergency notice. Water service temporarily suspended due to potential fraudulent environmental reporting. Estimated restoration pending full investigation. Phones lit up. Group chats exploded. Neighbors stumbled into their yards with no showers, no coffee, and no patience. I said nothing. I didn't need to. Victoria had weaponized policy to destroy my life. Now, the same policy was turning its crosshairs on her, and this time, I was the one watching from the sidewalk. By 7 a.m., my phone was vibrating nonstop. What's going on? Why don't we have water? Did you do something? I ignored every message and made coffee using bottled water from my emergency stash. By 8 a.m., the HOA scheduled an emergency community meeting. Attendance required. Victoria tried to spin it on the chat group, calling it an unfortunate clerical error and assuring everyone she was handling it. But the panic was louder than her charm. Parents couldn't bathe their kids, people couldn't flush toilets, and for once, every eye wasn't on me. It was on her. I packed my laptop, a portable speaker, and my projector. That night I would show them what she had done, and not with anger or accusations, just facts, just her words, her tone, her laugh. And then I'd let the court of angry neighbors do what HOA meetings rarely deliver: real justice. The room was packed. Angry, tired neighbors filled every seat of the beige community center that once silenced me. Victoria stood at the front, pale but composed, and began her speech. She called the water outage a bureaucratic misunderstanding. She promised resolution. She smiled through clenched teeth. And then I stood up. No yelling, no drama, just a click. The projector lit the wall behind her and her voice filled the room. $500 to someone who knows how to make it sound official. Worth every penny for the results. Laughter. Bragging. Contempt. Gasps rippled through the crowd like electricity. When the recording ended, there was silence, and then an eruption. "You lied to us. You endangered our kids. You buried his well for what?" Mrs. Peterson stood trembling with rage. "You made us accomplices." Victoria tried to speak, but for once her voice wasn't the loudest in the room. Victoria raised her hands, telling everyone to calm down. "This is being taken out of context," she said. "That video is clearly edited." She looked at me as if daring me to blink. I didn't. I played the second clip, uncut. Timestamps, metadata. Her voice again clear as crystal, dripping with smugness. Another wave of shouting erupted. "You weaponized a lie. We trusted you. You cost us everything." People were standing now yelling over one another, not at me, but at her. Her power dissolved in real time like sugar dropped in boiling water. I moved to remove Victoria as HOA president, one man shouted. Second came instantly. The vote was swift, hands raised, voices counted. She stood alone in the front row, mouth open, eyes wide like someone watching their castle burn. And I was the one holding the match. Quietly, legally, permanently. As the vote ended and the crowd began to disperse, Victoria stood up, shaking with rage. "This is a witch hunt," she screamed. "I will sue every single one of you. I will sue him." She pointed at me, eyes blazing, mouth trembling with desperation. I stayed seated, calm, quiet, steady. "Good luck," I said. Everything I did was legal and documented. "Can you say the same?" She stormed out, clutching her bag like it was a shield against the reality crashing down on her. People looked at me differently now, not like a pariah, but like a neighbor. Someone clapped me on the back. Another apologized for staying silent too long. "We should have spoken up earlier," someone said. We were all scared, but now they weren't. Because the tyrant was gone, and we had something better than revenge. We had a chance to rebuild. Together. With the settlement money and HOA fines she was forced to pay, I hired a professional crew and rebuilt the well. 30 feet deep, 5-layer filtration, backup solar. But this time I added something new. Access points, connections. A system that could support not just me but my closest neighbors. Mrs. Peterson was the first to join. Then 2 more families. It wasn't just a water system anymore. It was a quiet rebellion, a shared resource, a middle finger to fear. Kids played near the stone rim in the evenings. Neighbors sipped tea beside the LED glow. No more citations, no more clipboards, just clean water and earned peace. Victoria had tried to isolate me. Instead, she created a community, not by her rules, but by trust. And in the hum of flowing water I heard something I hadn't in months. Freedom. Real. Shared. Alive. This isn't just about one well or one woman's cruelty. It's a reminder that unchecked power, even in small places like an HOA, can deeply affect lives. Victoria's actions show how fear and control can hurt a whole community. But it also shows how courage, truth, and persistence can turn the tide. If you've ever felt silenced or powerless, remember sometimes the greatest strength lies in patience and smart action. Communities thrive not when everyone looks the same, but when they respect freedom and fairness. Thank you for listening to this true story. If it touched you or made you think, please like this video and subscribe. Share your own experiences in the comments. We're stronger when we stand together. And remember, real change starts when we refuse to be silent. Stay brave, stay kind,